Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you for being with us for this session, which starts off today for the year 2022, ushering in the Catalyst Knowledge Transfer series that began since the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. I'm Saurabheshwar Sen, welcoming all of you once more to our knowledge transfer series, where we focus on achievers, development practitioners, representatives, academicians, scholars, researchers, faculty from the sector of social sciences, development, who through their journey share their stories, build clarity, and create opportunities for future aspirants to look forward to the ever-growing field of social science and the development sector. Since 2011 at Catalyst, our focus has been to train, guide, mentor students, working professionals to pursue careers in the development sector. We have tried to achieve that over the years by focusing on mentoring them for entrances, interviews, applications to secure admissions to the programs of social science offered by the institutes in India as well as abroad. Today, at the onset of this session, on behalf of the entire team of Catalyst, I would like to thank International Women's Day, a global platform that has been created to forge positive change for women, for supporting this initiative and featuring our webinar on their official directory on their website, as well as enlisting Catalyst as a featured organization in terms of providing knowledge, clarity, and mechanisms of intervention to create better and safer opportunities for our women. Today, to start off the first Catalyst Knowledge Transfer series, I am delighted to present to all of you Eesha Kapoor from New Delhi. Eesha is currently working as the change maker in the education fellow with the New Delhi government. She recently completed her Master's in Development Studies from the Institute of Development Studies, University of Sussex. Eesha has a diverse work experience. As a software consultant with the Oracle Financial Services software, as a project lead at tech media startup Fosbytes Media Private Limited, and then as a project manager, media head at a nonprofit startup, Center for Science of Student Learning, CSSL. At CSSL, Eesha worked on a research study on social and emotional learning and reinstated her interest in the field of education. During her master's at IDS, Eesha co-founded an education hub called the IDS Education Hub. She hopes that her current role with the Delhi government will give her a platform to put her theoretical knowledge into practical implementation. And from everyone out here at Catalyst, we wish Eesha the best to move forward with her ideas, with her vision, with her enthusiasm. Just before we started the session, Eesha was actually mentioning about how interestingly she plays an instrumental role in the Delhi government program, which many of us have seen on television, that celebrates the spirit of entrepreneurship in very young minds. And I use the word very because Eesha might be as young as what age?
28.
Okay. Like you mean the Delhi government initiative for the students who are featured in the entrepreneurship drive?
Yeah, they are students from class 11 and 12. So
that's amazing.
Somewhere 16 and 17, so very young indeed.
Right. So amazing. So Eesha, thank you so much to take out your time for all of us today. And without any further delay, I would like to hand over the session to you. And I would request the participants who are in this meeting to be really free to ask questions to Eesha if at any point there are queries that you want to raise as we travel with Eesha, back to her days at IDS as a graduate pursuing development studies to the work that she's presently doing. And we would love to know, Eesha, to start off the session, that really what drove you to this field, and how would you like to say introduce the sector where you're working, as well as your academia in development studies, to our students and our participants?
Thank you so much, Sarveshwar. First of all, thank you everyone for joining, and thank you to Catalyst, the whole team behind it, for creating such a platform for the students or for the young professionals who want to pursue careers in development sector or social sciences in general. Welcome everyone. So to begin answering your question, I'm also going to share a slide so that it just helps to understand what I'm saying a little better when you can read certain things on the screen.
Sure.
Can you see my screen? All right. And yes, as Sarveshwar said, please drop in your questions on the chat box, and I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability. Okay, he's already given a great introduction of myself, so I'm gonna not repeat that. We're gonna head straight into what is development studies, how did I enter this field, and how can I portray this as a career opportunity to aspirants looking to enter the same field. So I'm sure people here who've joined might come from social sciences background. So development studies falls under the umbrella of social sciences, right? Which is basically anything and everything related to the society. As the official definition would say, that it is the scientific study of human society and social relationships. Development studies, which is a part of social sciences, is actually an interdisciplinary field of study that encompasses the political, social, economic, cultural aspects, problems, injustices faced by people across the world, especially in the developing sector. Development in itself has multiple definitions because it's very context specific, and I'll get to how it was important for me through this. So development, like I said, is context specific. A person living in a village in Africa would consider development to be something else, which could be having access to safe water, clean water, and someone living in a village in the UK, it would be something different, but altogether important for their development, for their society's development, right? For me, being born and brought up in India, development always for me meant or started from the inequalities that I saw around myself. I'm a 4G kid. I've lived across the country in urban or at least suburban, rural, suburban, urban areas, covering all the directions of the country. So I would see people facing inequalities in multiple areas, right? Economic inequalities, gender inequalities, cultural, social inequalities. And I would always want to understand why is it that the world is so imbalanced, right? And which is what urged me to pursue development. However, it took me some time. I'm a product of science. I'm a product of our education system, which pushed children to pursue professional degrees. And since I was okay in my academics, I pursued sciences and did my graduation in computer science and engineering. Only while I was working with my first firm, Oracle Financial Services, did I realize that my passion actually was in the social development sector, which is when I started my research. I did some fellowships. I volunteered in a few places. I read a lot. I spoke to people working in the field. And then I figured out that I would want to get a qualification in the field, and hence my decision to pursue Masters in Development Studies at IDS University of Sussex. So before I begin talking about IDS and MA Development Studies in IDS, let us talk about some career options that you might be able to avail if you want to be in this sector. A common misconception is that the variety of career options is limited, whereas that's not the case at all. You could be pursuing development studies, or you could be pursuing a course in social sciences and actually end up working in multiple different firms. You could be a consultant in governance, social impact, development consulting. You could be working for NGOs, international NGOs. You could be working with the governments, like I am currently working with the Delhi government. United Nations, the World Bank, they could be your option as well. And then, of course, research think tanks like IDS itself, or organizations such as Center for Civil Society here in India. Moving on, if there are any questions, do put them in the chat box and I'll get back to it. Moving on and coming now specifically to IDS, which is what I'm sure a lot of you want to know more about. IDS is the Institute of Development Studies at the University of Sussex in Brighton, United Kingdom. They are the #1 development studies institute currently for 5 years consecutively. I think this year as well, they might get it. There's a reason for that. And I believe through my experience, the reason that they stand above universities such as Oxford and Harvard and Cambridge is that it is very, very practical in its approach. So you're taught by fellows and professors who are actually research practitioners themselves. They are people who would be conducting on-field research, and then they teach you based on their, not just their theoretical knowledge, but also their practical experiences. It's a very small niche institute. It offers only master's degrees and doctoral degrees. So it's not as if they're going to be, it's a huge school, it's a huge institute. It sits within University of Sussex, of course, which has a lot of students. But at the IDS, at the Institute of Development Studies, you'll find yourself surrounded by very, very passionate set of people. And so your learning experience becomes all the more exclusive and just excellent in general. So the eligibility criteria for admissions at IDS is mostly threefold. It's not unlike any other institute. So you need to have a first or upper second mark, basically first or upper second class in undergrad course, which is equivalent to anywhere between 55 to 69% in Indian percentages that you might have in your undergrad course. You need to have some work experience in development related work. They do count internships, but full time. You could have worked in various different fields within development sector, but some work experience is required. You need to be clear about what you want, and that sort of shows only when you write your personal statement, and it needs to talk about why you want to study this and how does it connect with your future ambitions. So you need to be very clear in your thoughts. Talking about the courses that they offer 9 different masters. The first one is, of course, the one that I did, which is MA Dev Studies. That is the interdisciplinary course, which covers different areas of development. But they also offer specialized courses, which is MA Poverty and Development, which will focus on the poverty element of development, gender and development, which of course will focus on gender. There are also courses for climate change. If you're interested in business and development, if you come from a business-oriented mindset. So you can basically choose any of these courses based on your interest. I personally chose MA Development Studies, which is also their flagship course, because I wasn't very sure about which exact aspect of development I would want to focus on. Again, because I came from a science background and I wanted to give myself the chance to explore the different areas and then make my decision. If someone has already decided which area to focus on, they can specialize in a different course. Within MA Dev Studies, also, I would like to point out that at IDS, there is only one core module, which is mandatory in the sense that every student in MA Development Studies has to go through it, and which is basically an introductory course to development. So it talks about all these other aspects of specialization that the other degrees offer, but they talk about it in a concise manner in just 1 or 2 lectures. Other than that, you are free to tailor and customize your course according to your interests, your likings, and whatever subject or area you want to explore. This might sound daunting and scary that you would have to select your own topics, but trust me, going through that experience, it already teaches you so much about yourself. It forces you to think about what you are interested in, and you are all the more excited to learn that subject because you chose it. So that is how it basically flows. I can talk more about it in case the course structure, in case any of you is interested, probably after this in your question answer session. Talking about a very important element, which is scholarships. MA Development Studies is a flagship course at IDS, and like any other university or institute, unfortunately, there are not a lot of options for flagship courses in terms of scholarships, but you still have these international scholarships such as Chevening, Commonwealth. There's an IDS graduate scholarship specifically for children or youngsters coming from developing nations such as India. They also focus a lot on women wanting to study this course. There's also a scholarship called the Commonwealth Shared Scholarship, which offers, I think, 3 scholarships, if I'm not wrong. But these are some options that you can explore as scholarships for your studies at IDS. One piece of advice here from personal experience again would be that if you want to apply for a scholarship, apply to the course well in advance. The applications open from September onwards, and in case you want to go for the next cohort, my advice would be to apply as soon as possible, because scholarships, especially the international ones, the full scholarships, the deadlines are somewhere in November, if I'm not wrong. So even though you can apply to the course till next year, 1st of August, you will lose out on scholarship opportunities if you delay your application, because to apply for scholarships, most of the times you need an offer letter in hand. So that is the only piece of advice that I would give when it comes to scholarship. Again, based on my personal experience, because I missed the deadlines. Moving on, I wanted to touch on the future for development studies graduates, and not just at IDS, but in general. So first, talking from IDS perspective, IDS in itself, first and foremost, is a research think tank. And like I mentioned earlier, that you will be surrounded by researchers themselves. You will be in an environment which has produced, which works in collaboration with some of the most renowned names in social sciences. So you will be reading work for your courses written by Robert Chambers or Naila Kabir, who are supposed to be the best researchers in their particular fields out there. And you will also be studying from them. Either they've taught at IDS or they're teaching at IDS. So you get a very proud feeling when you're there and you're reading their work for your course and also are getting taught by them. So research at IDS becomes huge. Academia, your avenues in the field of academia open up a lot because you're an IDS graduate. Whether it comes to any other leading organization in the world, across the world, you will find some or the other IDS alum working there or having connects there. So IDS alumni network is huge. You could want to work at an INGO, at a UN organization, at the World Bank, and you will find someone or the other working there from the IDS fraternity. So that way, IDS opens up a lot of avenues within the development sector. Now, coming to the relevance of this field altogether. There are certain fields that they say is dying now, or certain industries which are not picking up, where you might not get jobs. And again, this is one of the misconceptions people have about the development sector, that you might not get a job, you might not get a well-paying job or a stable career. Well, to think about it, even if you put it in layman terms, we are nowhere close to achieving what we want to achieve for a world where everyone can live happily, can live a dignified life, right? There is still a lot of inequality. There's still a lot of poverty. There's still a lot of injustice. And so even if you go by the Sustainable Development Goals, which have been assigned by the UN, the goals need to be met by 2030. And we are far away from reaching them, right? Specifically also because of the pandemic. The COVID pandemic has put us really far behind the progress that the world was making, that the developing world was making in achieving its goals. Actually, if you think about it, a study by UNESCO said that because of COVID, 11 million girls will be out of school. And this adds on to the number, which is 130 million out of school girls already in the world. So even within the education sector that I'm currently working in, COVID has resulted in huge learning gaps. We've actually fallen back at least 10 to 12 years, if not more, in terms of achieving what we want for quality, holistic education for all. We've seen primary school children returning with basically no foundational literacy and numeracy skills. And it's not their fault, right? So many children have not had access to any education the last 2 years, given their backgrounds. So COVID has actually highlighted the inequalities in the world. It has actually deepened them, sadly. So there is a lot of work to be done in this sector. This is not an industry which is exhausting. This is not the industry which is reaching its peak. They sometimes talk about that For IT sector, they sometimes talk about that. For the aviation sector, but for the social development sector, that's not true. So there is immense opportunity, and there is a dire need for young professionals, for young minds to join this field from different backgrounds. The idea being that there should be representation of every community, of every person, of every people in the social sector, and that is the only way we can even hope that um, we can bring about a change in the world for a more just and equal society. So it is great to know that there are so many young professionals and young students wanting to pursue this field as a career, and that is one of the reasons why I was really excited for this as well, because I was one of them. I am one of them, and I would love to speak to more people and help them in whatever capacity that I can. Thank you, and we can open the floor for more questions.
Wow, thank you so much. Eesha, as Eesha mentions, we are open to questions. Participants, you are most welcome to ask questions to Eesha. So you can always open up your mic if you want to, and you can ask a question directly. Eesha, I would like to ask a question, just to set the tone while the others also, stock up on their queries. Firstly, thank you for highlighting the scholarship part, which is always a big concern, because it's a known fact that most of us are very keen to pursue the way a development studies is taught at IDS Sussex. But a lot of us might have a premonition that, it is kind of beyond the access, in terms of the finances, in terms of meeting the course fees and the tuition fees, and scholarships truly fulfill that gap to a great extent. So thank you for highlighting that point, and a very important tip to apply early to get the scholarship. I would like to know from your understanding, the other question which most of our participants are always concerned about is the fact that social science as a domain, we find, as you mentioned, not only within a cohort, participants from different backgrounds come to study, very diversified backgrounds, very diversified representation, as you mentioned. We also understand that they also have a diversified level of experience and exposure sometimes, right? Many a times, Eesha, especially for students fresh out of undergrad college, this is a concerning fact that they want to understand that what level of exposure will be sufficient to draw the attention of the faculty or the reviewer of their application, say with an institute like IDS Sussex. So if you would like to share any anecdote or understanding from your end for the participants.
Thank you for that question. That's a very relevant question indeed. And from my experience, so in my cohort at IDS, we had students fresh out of college, even though I had mentioned that there is work experience required. That is also solely for international students. A lot of UK and European students who come from social science background do make it to the course without any work experience. So we had in our cohort, the youngest student was probably the age 22, and the oldest was somewhere around 45. So that is the exact thing that you're saying, right? That diversity. And in my experience and opinion, everyone aiming for such a course should definitely have some work experience. maybe a year or two, if not more. And I say that because even though a master's degree is the curriculum is such that you can absorb different amounts based on your ability, but to make sure that you absorb to the maximum of your capability, it is a good exercise to come with some work experience. More so because you can then bring in a lot of nuance. You can bring in a lot of thought to what is being taught to you, right? You can base a lot of the concepts, because in social sciences it's about society, it's about humans, right? There is going to be most of the concepts that you see or learn about is something that you've either experienced yourself or you've seen in your life. So the more experience you gather, the more relatable it'll be, and it'll be easier for you to grasp concepts and also give a critical analysis to it. So in courses such as these, a critical analysis is very important. And this is where you'd mentioned, how do you catch the attention of admissions reviewers, or teachers or professors. And that is when you come with a critical mindset, that you're able to question the concepts, you're able to ask the relevant doubts from your context, from your own experience. So to bring and to enjoy actually the process of this postgraduate degree, I would recommend at least 1 or 2 years of work experience.
Right. I think that's an important message that Eesha shares. Eesha, would you now also want to be any specific about the type of work experience you would recommend, or is it really open to, again, a diversified type, range of exposure that someone might be bringing to the table? Would you recommend that, to pursue a program of development studies, the work experience in some format should be aligned to the expectation of the course? What is your thoughts on that?
So if it's 1 or 2 years, then I would recommend that it should be somewhere related to development sector. It could be a start of roles such as a research associate, or an associate at a consulting firm, or maybe an entry level role. Of course, it is going to be an entry level role. It's going to be a first job. But 1 or 2 years of experience, if it's just that, then I would recommend development field. If it's more, for example, for me, I had almost 4 years of experience in other fields. Then I added on to a year, a little more than a year in the development sector itself. And that came from my own, that was my own judgment. That was not the requirement as such. Of course, it was, I would have had to put that down in the application as well. But I know that it was a good decision, because there are certain other skills that you learn from other jobs. Any job, you learn some skills. But when you're specifically working in the development sector, there are certain concepts that you get exposed to that then you can use in your post-graduation. So I strongly recommend development sector oriented work. That will help. If you have other experience, it will definitely add. But if you're looking for more work experience, look for development sector experience.
Great. Thank you. Priya Medha, who's one of the participants, Eesha, she actually has written a question, and I think she has actually posted it directly to me. So I'm just going to read out this question. She's asking, ma'am, if you could tell us something about your work with the Delhi government. So in case you have no problems in sharing that, Eesha, Priya Medha is curious to know about your role with the Delhi government.
Sure. So I work as an education fellow. As mentioned in the introduction that actually Sauraveshwar gave at the beginning of this webinar, I was interested in the field of education before my master's, but even during my master's, I realized that this is the field I want to pursue. So I work as an education fellow with the government, and um, I work with the Deputy CM's office, and I have been allotted the project of Delhi Sports University. I don't know how much you guys already know about the projects that the Delhi government is working on, but they've opened up many specialized schools of excellence, and they want to focus on specializations in the different fields. And Delhi Sports University is another such attempt to bring about a change and to offer world class facilities to students hoping to form a career in the field of sports. And what often happens is that those who play sports find their academics to be affected by their choice of career, and they often have to leave sports because they want to work towards a more stable career. But we're trying to bridge that gap. We're trying to make sure that a sports person gets world class training opportunities while also giving them quality and holistic education. So that is what I'm working on right now.
Well, I think that sounds very fascinating, Eesha. Thanks, Priyamita, for asking this question, because a lot of times, we are at Catalyst with our work, always trying to make people understand how relevant the knowledge and education of social science is. So here you go, where social science knowledge is being applied to sports development, which definitely forms such an integral part of building a society, and nourishing and flourishing uh, the different talent who represents in our country, our states, right, our missions and our goals in different aspects of life. That's so interesting, a question that was asked, and thanks, Eesha, for putting that forth very poignantly. One another important thing I would like to just note and ask you is that when you were part of the IDS program, did you get an opportunity like this was like an offline opportunity for you, or was it an online opportunity for you?
It was kind of hybrid. The
Right,
learning was mostly online, but we did have access to the building and to the professors.
right.
So yes,
Right.
that is.
Okay. Because that is also a very crucial understanding in many of our minds right now, that we keep on uh, being part of this constant debate of how much how much effective our online approach of education. Well, I think the answer is straight away in front of our eyes, how someone like Eesha has been able to apply that knowledge into action that she's part of. And because, this is a concern, Eesha, which we are still harboring at the back of our minds. We understand that the pandemic is kind of under wraps, it's under control up to great extent. Yet, we also don't want to be overtly overconfident about how
Yeah.
things are, right? The government advisory is still to follow protocols, right? Still to be watchful about any flare-ups that might be taking place. Um, just give us a little bit of understanding of one final point. This would be really my final question, because we keep on hearing a lot of these questions from our students. Say a lot of people who are wanting to pursue development studies in India, and when you compare that with pursuing development studies from Sussex, UK, right? How do you see, like, is there really any strong difference? I'm not asking you the difference compared to the course and curriculum in India, But I'm just trying to understand that in spite of pursuing a program offered by an university in the UK, and then now working in India with the knowledge that you have gained from the curriculum of UK, have you faced difficulty, or do you think that the framework, the way it is taught, is quite relevant and applicable, even in the context of a developing country like India?
Right. That's a very relevant question for people looking to pursue their masters in this field abroad. And I would really like to point this out that even at IDS, when you're talking about development, and this is actually, I can say that this would apply for any other university, be it LSE or Cambridge or Oxford or other universities in the world. When you're talking about development, most of the case studies that you look at come from the developing part of the world. So my time at IDS or my studies at IDS, there were so many times that we were talking about Indian context, that you were talking about South Asian context, or African context, or Latin American context, because these are the developing areas, right? The developed part of the world is already at a much more comfortable position. So the context pretty much stays as it is. What actually differentiates, or for me, what I wanted to do when I decided to go abroad, while knowing that I will come back, because I always wanted to come back and work in India, was that by studying in a cohort with people from 60 different nations, I will get to understand their perspectives, different contexts, and the idea is to then understand your context much better. Because if you look at only your particular country or your particular house, you cannot understand where you're going wrong till the time you don't know where it's going right. So that was my idea, to widen my perspective, to widen my knowledge, to learn from my peers that come from different parts of the world, and then apply the best practices from that at home in India. And which is what would probably be missing if I was studying in India. I'm not sure. I mean, the courses that are being offered at TIS or Ambedkar or JNU or other universities in India, they are doing terrific. They are picking up the graduates from there are world renowned, and they are at the same level if you study from any other foreign university. The only thing is the perspective that you learn from interacting with people from all across the world. That is the only thing that differentiates. You study this subject anywhere in the world, and there's no chance that you're not talking about India. There's no chance that you're not talking about certain policies in India that are being read across the world. For example, Manrega, and social protection. You're talking about India. You have to keep in mind that we are in a position where we can lead this. India is in a position where we can actually lead policies and reforms that set an example for the rest of the world. So that is recognized at a global stage.
Nice. Thank you so much. I think that was really heartening to know, and I guess this is a great impetus to many of our aspirants, who have these concerns on their minds. And it's really nice to understand that being in the UK and studying about India, that truly sums up the relevance of India as a country, their positioning, the impact on global market. If I can also expand Eesha's thoughts. So we have 5 minutes left for the session. So any final question or queries from any of our participants, we will be happy to take that. Anyone with any question, feel free to use your microphone, or if there is a little bandwidth latency, you can always use your chat box. Thank you. Okay, so I believe participants might be still soaking in the information that Eesha shared, because I must admit, Eesha, that this session has been an eye-opener for all of us, including me. Um, Firstly, thanks to your very simplified presentation, sharing your thoughts in a format which has truly made most of us, I'm sure, understand the approach. Um, Parikshit asked how someone can get a work experience. I think that is something that Eesha was highlighting. Would you like to add any points to Parikshit's question, Eesha?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was also in a similar position where I did not know where to begin. But Parikshit, there are a lot of organizations out there. You can look for. So first, think about probably which area of development most interests you. So whether it is education, girl child, gender inequality, climate, poverty, then look for probably NGOs or organizations working around this area. And every organization has openings for entry level jobs, and go ahead, apply for it. And you got to start from somewhere, and everyone recognizes that, more so in the social sector. And it is your passion that drives you there, even if it is because you want to get that experience so that you can then pursue your post graduation. It is a well known fact in the industry. It is a well known fact for everyone. So just narrow it down, figure out which industry, which area you'd want to work on, because that will just help them understand your passion, and then help you get a chance to work with them. So yeah, probably a good exercise would be that.
Right. Thank you. Absolutely. I think,
Ma'am,
yes. Priyamida, please go
ma'am,
ahead.
I want to ask a question that what is the difference between the government approach and the NGO approach towards development?
Thank you for that question, Priyamada. So the approach is in the implementation bit. So what kind of authority and power does the government have? Government has all authorities, right? I mean, of course, different sectors. And the mechanism is difficult in the government system because it is huge, right? It's a machinery, and many different departments come together to make this machinery work. So within the government, it is more about how do you get these different parts to work together. Whereas in an NGO, you will find that NGO is working on one specific aspect of social development, and their areas of authority or decision-making powers within the society will be different. So they come from the civil, they represent the people. Government has certain authority of making decisions, which probably the NGOs don't have. But what they do have is the power of people who bring in their expertise and research. And then what you'll find is that more often than not, these NGOs work in collaboration with the government. So they need certain authorities sanctioned by the government. In the government system, it is very difficult to innovate. It is very difficult to bring about new things because it is so huge, and you have to run the society, you have to run a country, that more often than not, it becomes difficult to try new things to give the space for creativity and innovation. Whereas that is available with NGOs. They are working specifically for that cause. And so they can use as much creativity and innovation to make a change happen there. So the difference is, at the end of the day, it will happen in probably the same channel, but the approaches will be different. I hope I answered that properly.
Right. Thank you. I think that was a great question, Priyamita. Thanks. And again, thank you, Eesha, for simplifying, demystifying the understanding how the implementation works at the different levels in our society. So with that, on that note, we would like to thank Eesha to start this very important dialogue. We are looking at these sessions as conversations, as starters, which are the first building block towards social intervention and innovation. Because the moment we start thinking, the moment we start understanding what Eesha has seen, observed, and what she feels through her work are the areas which needs to be addressed, we realize the untapped opportunity and potential that lay ahead of us, right? In our career path, career trajectories, especially when we are fresh out of college and we are trying to understand which path to choose, what experience to gain, a session like this truly gives us that framework, and for which we are definitely thankful to Eesha. And we would like to also mention on that note that uh, based on this conversation from Catalyst, we will like to build on this opportunity. So the participants who are in this session today and people who are watching us across, we welcome all of you to engage with us, to engage with Eesha, with her work, because as she clearly points out that progress or development cannot happen in silos. There is so much of collaborative effort which is put in. One of the greatest takeaways for me in this session has been application of social science into sports. I again repeat, because that truly talks about the diversity of how social science education, knowledge, and skill is relevant at different walks of our lives. So thank you, Eesha, once more from each and every one of us at Catalyst to be with us, to share your thoughts, your knowledge, your exposure. Definitely, this session is a fillip to the ever-growing interest and intrigue of so many of our aspirants. We wish you all the best for your projects ahead. We would love to see more engagements with your space of work and Catalyst, that through which we can engage our participants and future aspirants to choose a path of social impact in the days ahead. Thank you so much, participants. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.